Hey everyone, this is Doug Z. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. I've got an amazing guest for you. His name is David Sliman, Sliman, from salesperformance.com is the URL. Company is Sales Performance. He is the CEO of the company. He's built 3 companies before. And we're going to talk about some extremely important subjects today. 2 in particular. One is, how do you actually build a sales team? Now, before you go, well, I don't want to build a sales team. If you want to grow and scale, you're going to want a sales team down the line. And whether you want it today or whatever, that is your choice. But I'm going to tell you, the sooner you can, usually the better. And we're going to talk about how do you do it, but really the mind shift in performance that comes around and must be present in order to build a high performing sales team. Then we're going to talk about the actual team development as well as the sales execution framework that you can use to actually train your sales teams and get high performance out of these folks. This is an amazing episode. Please get a pen, paper, write things down, go back, listen over and over, share this one with people. It's such an important subject. I cannot tell you how many, but it's a huge percentage of people don't know how to do this correctly. So they're out there and they're doing this and they're making tons of mistakes, and it's costing them time, energy, and so much stress and a lot of money. And you don't have to have that happen to you. So anyways, we're going to talk about that. If you're looking for predictable revenue, reach out to me at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com as the email, and I will respond to you. All right, let's go talk to David right now, and let's pump up your revenue and your profits. Hey, David, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Glad to be here, Doug. Looking forward to this.
So you are the CEO of Sales Performance. You can be found at salesperformance.com.
Yes,
And
yes.
what part of the world do you hail from at this point?
I actually live outside of Park City, Utah.
Park
So, right,
City.
yeah, the weather's beautiful here right now. We're in the middle of the summer. It's sunny every day, and there's no snow at this point.
That's a beautiful thing. Being in New Hampshire, I can relate to no snow.
Yeah, right.
We all love it.
Yeah.
So let's let's talk about what the mindset of a person who wants to develop a sales team. A lot of people want to build a sales team. I hear it
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time. I
yeah.
want to build a sales team, but man, they're such a pain. Oh my gosh, like it's so much work. And I always find what's lacking, and I would like you to uh, also validate or invalidate this statement, that
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know what the mindset is that they really need to develop a high performing sales team.
Yeah, yeah. It's a big question. And I think the first thing you really have to do in order to develop a great sales team is have clarity around your execution plan and have clarity around the expectations of what you want from that team. Okay. Now remember, you could be developing one sales rep, 2 sales representatives. You could have a team of 25 sales representatives. So in that case, you're going to be at a different level, but the expectations really need to be clear on what you want from that team. I mean, I've seen this time and time again. When I go into sales organizations first and I look at sales organizations, the first thing I ask is, okay, what's the quota and how is that set? And is everybody on the same page with that communication? And you'd be surprised on how many companies really are not very clear on what those expectations are. But before we get into that, I would like to talk about, the idea of around the clarity of the execution plan. Um, if you're an entrepreneur, and listen, I started my first company just me selling. And then I built it up and I brought sales professionals on. And then
Mhm.
my second company, I had embedded salespeople who I brought on and then developed that, and then had franchisees and all that kind of stuff. But what you really have to do before you start developing your sales team is have a great prospecting framework and understanding your KPIs too, like your key performance indicators, right? You really need to know expectations on, all right, if I'm going to make X amount of touches, how many decision makers am I going to get? And when I do get a decision maker, how many of those are going to convert to an appointment? When I do get an appointment, how many of those are going to convert into sales? What's my average sale? And what's my profit on those sales? What's my commission plan? So there's some things that you really have to understand. But most importantly, when you're developing a sales team, is to understand that KPIs. Or if you're developing a team, work together with that team to really draw clarity to those KPIs. When I was building one of my companies, I actually brought the whole sales team. I had a team of about 5 or 6 people at that point, and I brought them all in and I said, okay, over the next 60 days, we're going to come to every meeting with the touches. We're going to see all those KPIs I just talked to you about.
Yep.
And we're going to measure those. And then what it also did is it gave me an opportunity to help identify where some of my team members were lacking, where others were having that had strength. So when I spent time with them, I actually could focus on the areas where they needed improvement versus kind of punching water, so to speak, and just going out and working with them and just going through my deal and what I thought was important. It gave me a lot of clarity, and it also gave the team a lot of, one, accountability, and two, it was great coming each week and seeing those numbers develop over the course of 60 days. So it was a really good team development exercise that I employed. And then it just really laid down the framework for myself through the years to come to make sure that that was always established.
So you and I have very similar philosophies and how we think and act in this regard.
Yeah.
And so, bringing the team together for KPI, a lot of people they don't do these things. It's like, what are we benchmarking against? What do we want them to be able to accomplish? And, can we not, right? I mean, it really comes down to that. And so I'm gonna throw a couple things in from a same perspective, but different view, which is, look, folks, if you're going to develop a sales team, and you all should develop a sales team at some point, you've got to please understand one thing. You're acting as the sales manager when you start out.
Yeah.
And a sales manager's job is to grow the revenue of the department that she or he or they are are managing, and to develop the people who are on that team and holding them accountable. So that means you've got to be able to be, just as David, you said perfectly, coaching them on what's strong, what's not strong, how do we prop this up, how do we, someone else on the team stronger than we all are on this particular thing, so what are they doing? And your job in the beginning is to help that team grow the revenue to the goal that you have established that they all agree upon.
Yes.
Did I miss anything?
No, and I can't stress this point, especially in the landscape that you're talking about here. If you've got an owner who's just developing a team, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people or whatever it is, remember, your time is limited. Okay. So if you don't understand these KPIs, when you're out with somebody, you might not be working on things that can impact them and help them perform. But when you do the work on this and you get very intentional about understanding the key performance indicators, you don't need to spend 3 hours with somebody. You can go out and spend an hour with somebody and just work on those things that you have identified where they need improvement. And it draws so much clarity. It gives you the springboard as a entrepreneur to be more effective in the growth of your organization and the people who work with you.
Well said. Let's go back to the mindset thing, because this is where I see all time, like, people are like, salespeople, they're really hard to manage. They're a disheveled bunch of people. Emotionally, they're like kids. They're like, and the answer is yes, they can be, but all people are. The mindset going in, though, is to me, it should be what I said earlier. And I am going to build this sales team by hiring the right type of people up front. So go back to what you said. What's the execution and what is the expectation of the position in which they're going to be. So I'm going to take a step back.
Okay.
From the beginning. I look at ads all the time, David, for sales attraction,
Yes.
positioning.
Yeah.
And I go, what? Like, are you kidding me? Like, I saw one the other day, top producer wanted, trips, bonuses, this, right? And
Yeah.
I'm
Make it sound
like,
like a vacation.
it's like, exactly, right? And this was from a very well-known company too. And I'm like, who wrote this ad? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So folks, when you're going to, the mindset's got to be that if you're going to have these KPIs and these expectations, you've got to match the person who's coming in on the front end who can handle those expectations and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
execution of the process. So when you create your ad, the mindset's got to be around, I'm going to create an ad that attracts those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And Doug, it really comes full circle with I keep coming back to this KPI thing,
Yeah.
okay? Even in my interview process, when I was developing teams, okay? Um, when I sold my last company, I stayed on with this organization for 2 years to help them develop a national sales team, okay? We started with 8 sales professionals, and with a year and a half, we were up to 35, okay? But I did a lot of interviewing. I did a lot of they helped a lot with the ads and all that kind of stuff. But I want to make this point be known in the interview process because I understood the KPIs. All right. In the interview process, I essentially put together a pro forma based on the activity to give them an idea of the potential of income they could make based on average activity, below average activity, high average activity. Listen, if you're a high performer, this is the kind of activity you're going to put in. This is what you can expect. Now, don't hold me to it, but based on my KPIs and what we have as a team of 35 sales representatives within our team, these are the KPIs that are reflecting on an average per month for our teams. Now I could give them earning potential throughout the year to draw clear expectations. But this is the kind of work that you're going to have to do in order to get to that point. So it really I was able to draw a lot of clarity. And then there were some people who interviewed and go, listen, I can't commit to that. Great. They would bow out early, right? And then there were other tenacious people who were like, man, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to exceed that. And then some of those people did and some didn't. I mean, it's how it is in that world. But realistically, when you understand, we're coming full circle here. When you understand those KPIs and the expectations, now your employment ads, your interview process, everything becomes so much more clearer for the person that you're speaking with, what you want out of them, and what they expect of you.
I, don't take this wrong, but I could give you a big hug right now because this is like I have this conversation so many times with owners and CEOs, and they're just like, my sales team sucks, right? And it's like, well, let's look at what they are, and it always traces back to exactly what you just said. There was
Yeah.
no front end expectation set on KPIs or on expectations. They just
Yeah.
hired these people and they're like, well, they're salespeople. They should know how to sell. Then no training, no development, et cetera.
Yeah.
And what I heard is you went from 8 people to 35. And yeah, it wasn't all, roses and
Yeah. That wasn't
fun,
perfect.
but it was a structured system. Folks, lean in, structured system, because what David's giving you right now is not gold, it's platinum. I don't know what's worth more than platinum, but it's worth
Thanks,
more than
buddy.
that, right?
Uh,
Because if you don't do this, folks, if you don't, you're going to end up like in a bad marriage, right?
yeah.
Right? It's,
Yeah.
and so what David, what you're saying is you're coming in with the truthful everything. You're like, hey, listen, maybe this is the greatest place since the whatever, or you're coming
Yeah.
in and saying the other side, like, hey, I've been divorced 9 times, I'm going to give this marital thing another shot, but I want you to
Yeah.
know up front that this is what you're coming into.
Yeah.
And folks, if you think about it that way, what David's saying is, if you think about it that way, if you look at these people like, hey, this is a marriage, right? And I'd like to have a harmonious relationship. Why wouldn't you do match.com on the front end, right? Why would,
Totally. Yeah.
right? Because if
Yeah.
you don't want to find out after you get married that, hey, marriage vows, I don't, those don't mean anything to
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're hiring, what I'm hearing for is profile of the KPIs and the expectations, and you're matching all of this up. And like you said, the people who, I love that you give the whole comp plan up front, right? And it's like, this is what you
Yeah.
can expect. And they're like, yeah, no can do, Barb, you know? And
Yeah,
so,
I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to kill it, right? And then then you come in with a desire. And then the other thing too is I was very clear on the ramp up plan over the course of the first 90 days. Because let's be honest, when you hire somebody, the first 90 days are so imperative, right?
yeah.
And that gives you an idea on how they're progressing up against your benchmarks that you set. And I promise you, if you're building a sales organization and you're doing what Doug was saying, listen, I've hired 9 people, 8 out of the 9 have failed. Stop right now. Get a handle on your KPIs because it's going to draw. Don't hire another person until you get a handle on it. And if you need help, guys like Doug or guys like myself can come in and help you do that and identify it. But really, what it comes down to is don't hire another person until you get this done because you're going to be wasting your money and you're going to be wasting your time. And time is the only thing you can't get back, and money sometimes. But more importantly, you can make more money.
I'm glad you said it because I was going to say stop and call David. And the reason I'm saying this is exactly for, look, I once had a company that I went into, they had an 82% turnover rate of their
Yeah.
entire employee base. Now
Yeah.
here's the sad part. It was higher on the sales team.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now
It's a big number.
think about what that's costing the company, depending on whose statistics you want to read, it costs you, 150% of base salary and all this other stuff, right? But let's just all agree, it costs you a lot of money. And because you're turning these people over, you're not selling as much because now the people that hey, I was dealing with Joe and now Joe's gone and now I'm dealing with Margaret and Margaret's gone. And then, right? I mean, the confidence level in that sale is just dropping.
Yes.
And so you're losing much more than just the salary or, that's the soft and hard costs on there. You're losing goodwill and company reputation, and expanding your sale from the initial sale to multiple sales. And all of this stuff just compounds on itself. And it all goes back to the mindset of the origin of the process,
Yes.
based on those two things, the KPIs that are going to be driven, the expectations that are going to be set, and three things, and the actual profile of the person that actually fits that
Yeah. Fits the
and
mold.
in the organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's, any.
Yeah. It's it's a little more complicated, but realistically, you've hit it on the head. I mean, listen, you have to start with the base, right? And those are the fundamental base items in order to, be successful. And then what happens is this: success breeds momentum, motion creates motion. You get somebody in the system who's had success. Listen, sales professionals talk. They identify somebody's had success. Most salespeople are really competitive. They're going to want to beat that person or emulate or be as good as that person. And then the next thing you know, you've got 2 or 3, and then you got 4, and then it's amazing how that compounds when you start bringing on and identifying the right people, like you said, which is so important. And I'm not going to say it worked 100% of the time, but the probability was, 70%. In the cases when I really got wrong. And again, listen, everybody, I learned the hard way too. There were things that I did in the beginning, that where I made my mistakes, but I learned really quick, and I had some great mentors to help guide me through that, in those early stages when I was hiring sales professionals, and worked a lot of things out.
So let's talk about what you just hit on, which is so, so important. There are certain characteristic traits that we want to look for, depending on the KPIs, the expectations, and the
Mhm.
goals that we're setting, and who fits that profile. But we on the profile, we need to know what those are. So, we used to like in the old days, we used to look at two things: ego strength, self-confidence,
Yeah.
you know, and empathy. Are they willing to bond with clients and those type of things? And then we added the third one, which was will to sell, will to win, right? Like it's the
Yeah.
desire.
Yeah. The
And
grit.
if you don't test for those things, you end up with maybe they'll understand the expectations, maybe they'll understand the KPIs, but they're not going to be that competitive type that you were just talking about. So here's my question, because I have found this to be a good thing. And
Mhm.
and I'm okay with, no, Doug, that stinks. That's not the way
Yeah.
we would do it. Um, I have found that putting structured interviews, asking all the same questions during the interviews, and lead scoring against these structured interviews on
Yeah.
questions that will test all of this stuff, is the best way to go. Have you
Yep.
found anything different or better or?
There's one thing that I loved to do. And I would do a field interview. Okay. And it doesn't matter if you have a team of, 50, 100.
Mhm.
I mean, we had 35. And um, I would love to do a field interview, and I would have them go out with a senior sales representative or a manager at that point. I mean, we had managers at that point. And I would have them meet them in the field. And then I would just have them go out and do some prospecting or kind of the day-to-day prospecting. And then we would always do this one little test at the end. Okay. The sales manager, and I started this year and I translated over to my team, but my sales manager, right about the last door they were going into, and they'd hit maybe 5 or 10 doors. The last door they went into, they'd say to the prospect, "Hey, do you want to try it?" And it really didn't matter if they went in and chopped it up and just
Mhm.
filleted the thing and just totally fell on their face. If they went in and they said, "Yeah, I'll give it a shot," that to me was something that was now that was not the end of all to the hire, but that was a big green light for us because as you know, in sales world, one of the biggest killers is call reluctance.
Mhm.
And if they were like, no, no, I'm just not ready, we would just be in tune with that. It wouldn't be the end of them being hired, or it wouldn't be the green light. It wouldn't be the red light or the green light, but it would be something we would talk about. And it was always something that we like to do when we were developing our organizations.
So, which is a super important point. We used to do something similar. We would simulate the environment they would be in, or we
Oh,
immediately
great.
throw them into the environment they needed to be
Yeah.
in. And we would always pick, like, we knew it was going to be a hard one for them because we like pre-screen the process and we're like, oh, this person's never going to buy anything. But
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
see how they react. Do they, do
So
they
good.
they fold like a chair in the wind, it went and then the first objection. So what you're bringing up is a super, super, super important point. And that is test what they're made of before you hire them. So I'll
Yes.
say it again, guys and gals. Test what they're made of before you hire them. And what does that mean? Date them. It's like not literally, but
Yeah.
like what you just did, David. You put them out there and you said, "Hey, do you want to take a shot at this?" And if they go, "Geez, I don't feel that confident," that's likely how they're going to react when your clients push back. I don't have the
Hmm.
money. I don't have the time. Geez, I don't know if this is the right timing, right? They will traditionally act that way. No, to your point, you could train people. You can train them. But these are cues, right? You want to
Yeah.
date them in the real situation. But think about it, folks, as this. You go out on, like, when you were courting someone, if you're married now or you're in that position, you don't just walk up to them and go, "Hey, man, you look great, let's get married and have a family, and you know what, here's all my bank accounts. Woohoo, do whatever
Right.
you want to do with
Uh,
them," and blah blah. You don't do that. You're like, all right, we take step one, step two, step three, step four. And what David is laying out here is the steps, right? So test what they
yeah.
can are made of before you hire them in a real field situation. Simulate the
Yeah.
working conditions. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and one of the things you brought another technique that I always like to use in the interview process too was, if somebody had a resume, I would say, and things happen. Listen, they might have been here 6 months or they were here 2 years. I'd say, out of the last two jobs or three jobs you've had, which one did you love? Like, did you love the most? Where were you the most like successful? And they would tell me, and I would say, okay, sell me on it.
Oh,
And if
that's cool.
if they couldn't regurgitate like a nice power statements, which I like to call it, or like a proposition state, a value proposition, and really educate me on why that product was different, why it had its advantages, whatever it was. If then I just knew I really felt like they were just giving me the BS, the bullshit, so to speak. Pardon the language, but that's true. But you can smoke it out. But if they could come back, I mean, there were people I've interviewed that they would, man, they roll it off their tongue, and I'd be like, all right, they're confident, right? Like
Right.
they're definitely, I could feel it. Other times, it's just like they just freeze, and at that point, they've given you a BS answer.
That is totally, totally accurate. I've had that happen numerous times
Mhm.
in my processes. Which, I'm going to recap this for people because they don't understand this a lot of times. Folks, write this one down. David brought like all the cherries on the tree home on that one. All the ripe, nice, sweet cherries, not the sour, bitter ones, right? When most of you look at resumes lie.
uh,
Right? They put down the best stuff that they can ever think of. They probably had Chat GPT write it for them at this point, and they lie. So take the resume and do what David said and ask them the questions and then put them on the spot and see if they lied. Because a lot of time it's like, well, generated $240 million in sales on blah, 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 right? And it's like,
yeah,
so tell me how you did that. And you walk them through the and you ask questions to poke holes in that story because we
yeah.
all like to, what's the word, conflate or inflate or whatever the word is,
Yeah.
right? These things, it's like, uh
Trust but verify.
trust but verify.
That's
That's even
yes.
that's awesome. Yeah. Because people like I was going to give an old reference, but I don't think people like, there used to be this show called Married with Children, and Al Bundy was the guy, and
Yeah.
he used to say, I threw three touchdowns at the Polk High, game, and my life was ruined because I met, Peggy, right? Whatever, right? But it's always like when he gets into this place where he's got to defend himself, he's always going back to the three touchdowns, right?
Right. Right.
And so if that's the only instance in their life that they've actually had success, you want to smoke that out, as David said, because the BS will come forth, and
Yeah.
you want to smoke that process out. That's super, super helpful. Thank you for sharing that. I want to go into, okay, so let's say we hired them.
Mhm.
Here's another thing that we must all do. I don't care if they're top producers. I don't care how much money they've sold. You must have training. And
Yes.
right. And I'm not talking, folks, just about here's my widget. Here's all the parameters around product training. The best of the best still want to get better. And they're looking for
Yeah.
these little leverage points that they can use in the process. I just had a conversation with somebody 2 hours ago, and she said something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And I wrote it down, right? It wasn't something I thought of.
Yeah. Yeah.
She thought of it. So thank you, Janet.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm using it with the team, right?
Yeah.
And so just like you said, you get everybody together and you talk about the brilliance. I was one-on-one. And so, but you have this sales execution framework that
Yes.
you run by, or teach everyone else to run by as well. Could you run through that for everybody, please?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When I get into sales or well, first off, let's back up to what you said. You have to have a training program. If you're going to expect, okay, great results from your sales professionals that you have on your team, you got to start giving them better tools and you got to start giving them great training. Okay. If the expectations are high that you want them to produce, okay, then make sure that you're giving back. This is a two-way street. So I've always, throughout my careers and the companies that I've built and the companies I've worked with, I really impress that upon them right away. If you're going to expect more, you got to give more. Okay. So training is one of them. But yes, I mean, really, there's four silos that I really focus on when it comes to my training program and going into organizations. Now, there's a lot to unpack in them, but I'm just going to be broad. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
The first one is mindset. You know, culturally, what do we do? Why do we do it? What's the mindset of the team? What's the mindset of the leadership? Top down, bottom. There's a lot involved with that, but really getting your team in the right headspace to go out and do the things that they need to do each and every day and really work as a team. Okay. Um, I think that's important. So mindset is number one. Two is powerful prospecting, effective prospecting. Okay. I do this exercise called the power statement. And it starts from the CEO all the way to the people who are leading the charge on the front lines. And you could ask somebody, a sales professional, well, what do we do? They'll say something. And then you ask the CEO, what do you do? You ask a marketing person, what do we do? You ask this person, what do we do? And you get 20 different iterations of what we
Mhm.
do. What I do is I really align that with the organization. And I do this exercise called the power statement so that when someone walks in the door or someone runs into you at an elevator or somebody asks you what you do, you can explain the challenges that you help with for your clients, how you do it, and what makes you different. Now, it's a little bit more than that, but essentially that's the framework. So when you speak to someone, they know right away. So power prospect and then KPIs and all those things we talked about, we ripped that apart. Then a presentation framework. You've got to give your team a framework. Okay. I call it that. It's a framework. It's not a robot, somebody reading a script in a dialogue. It's a framework and a presentation framework. And I set that thing up from top to bottom, all the way from the discovery step, all the way to you get to the close and the pricing. And then the last thing is creative follow up and closing. Okay. Here's what I will tell you, Doug. Okay. If you have a great presentation framework and you have a great mindset with your team, you got great prospecting, you have a great presentation framework, you're not doing trickery closes, quick lines, these guys on TikTok with all this creative, funny stuff and mindset things, okay? If you've really executed on those three steps, the close becomes quote unquote easier. You earn the right as a sales professional to ask for the deal. You earn the right. You draw certainty. There's so many things that we do in this training that draw certainty with your client and with yourself that build confidence in both of you as you're going through this process. So clarity and certainty are two big things. But rather than saying, hey, I was just following up or I was just checking in, we give creative ways to get back in front of prospects or get back in front of them. And it's not always sell, sell, sell. Sometimes it's informative things. Sometimes it's just strategies and ways to really put yourself in front of a prospect so that you draw credibility.
Mm. Yeah.
Those
It's
are really the four things there.
Well, it's the credibility. Look, we're continuously building rapport through the process, right? We continuously want to build more trust, more trust, more trust, more, respect, more like if possible.
Yeah.
And if you unify what you just talked about through the process, it will boost buying confidence. If we don't boost buying confidence, we're inducing fear. I mean, it's
Yeah.
that simple. Or at least leaving them where they are, which we necessarily don't want to do because most of the time they're coming in skeptical anyways. They're hopeful, but they're also skeptical.
Yes.
So I want to dig in, if you don't mind, a little bit on
Yeah.
the presentation framework a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are kind of the top level like bullet
Yeah, I'll
points?
give the broad strokes, and I can go into any organization and really identify this. But my five steps in a presentation framework, one, are a great discovery step. Okay. And more than just asking questions for your prospect, really, I'm going to give you a nugget, okay, or give the people who are listening a nugget. All right. In life, as human beings, Doug, when do we get the most nervous? When there's what? Uncertainty,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Uncertainty. So why would you ever go into a meeting and not set the agenda. It's amazing to me. Sales professionals come in and they do this blah thing and they
Yeah.
just want to start throwing questions. They never set the agenda on what the expectations are for that day. And they never leave a meeting without setting the next steps. Those are two things that sales professionals really don't execute on correctly. So when I say this discovery step, one of the big steps in there is the setting the agenda of what we're going to go through. So I do it the 3 Ds. Discovery step. Next step in my presentation is a demo of the product. Okay. Third, I talk about the differentiators. Fourth is validation. And fifth is pricing and proposal. Okay. Now, there's a lot to unpack with those, but a couple of things that I want to talk about is if you do a great discovery step, no presentation is the same. Okay. They're not identical.
Mm.
If you do a great discovery step, you understand the challenges of your prospect. The framework is there so that you can put pressure on certain areas when you need to in your presentation. And maybe, just touch on other things in your presentation. But if you do a great discovery step, that will dictate the way that you're going to deliver your presentation based on their needs. But when you stick to that framework, it's important. And the last thing that I'll say when I go to proposal and price, this is a no pass go thing for me. I've seen sales organizations where these sales professionals come in, they give these great presentations, they identify the challenges, they've got it lined, and then they send an email with a proposal that's written out with a bunch of numbers and saying, "Thank you for your time. Here's your quote through my email."
Mm.
You've got to put together a great proposal for somebody, something that you've built all this credibility up, and I have it happen to me all the time. Great credibility up, and all of a sudden they get this proposal with an email that was written in like 3 sentences, and I'm
Hmm.
like, that's your proposal? So there's a few things to unpack there, but that's really the framework that I go through.
So it was discovery,
Yeah.
demonstration, differentiation, proposal, and what was the fourth
Or
one?
validation and then proposal. Yep.
Validation and then proposal.
Yeah.
So let's talk about differentiation and validation for a second, because I think,
Yeah.
it's like two broad stroke words. How, like, obviously sending the email you just talked about, if everybody sent
Yeah.
the 3 lines and somebody sent you a really personalized, meaningful, relevant email with the proposal, it would have differentiated them right there.
Right there. There's one thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So how to like expand a little on differentiation, if you
Well,
wouldn't mind.
let's talk about that because one of the big things that you talk about training,
Mm,
right? You talk about sales organizations delivering a great training.
mm.
You better have in your training a section on your competitors. You better understand your competitors. You better understand how they deliver their product or service. You better know everything about them so that you can identify what makes you different. So and that's an exercise I'll do with an organization. We'll list a 5, sometimes 10, sometimes 3, sometimes 2. Doesn't matter. We'll get the top competitors and we want to understand everything about them. And there's some techniques to do that. And then once you've identified that, then what you do is you take your product and you talk about the things that make you different from the other companies out there. Now, I don't get specific in that step and go and start, berating a competitor, but
Right.
I just say, what we do is we've identified that this is important for our customers and this is why we're different. So it's a part in the presentation that you'll develop. But yeah, there's some research that has to be done to that. And it's not, just the CEO having it in its mind. I mean, we really do put it on paper and do an exercise that reflects that.
And folks, you should be able to walk past your salespeople and say, XYZ competitor, give me 3 things that differentiate us from them.
Right. There you go. Right. So, yeah. And sometimes there's some commonalities. Most of the time, there's commonalities amongst those. But yeah, you want to make that part of your presentation.
So what about validation? Because I want to qualify what validation
Yeah,
means.
validation is really geared around companies that have worked with you that have had success, case studies, um, numbers, revenue generating numbers, things that will validate the fact that if my company invests in yours, What are the things that you've been doing for people in my industry? And the more specific you can get, the better.
Hmm. Is it case studies, endorsements, and social proof or only, or are there other
Yeah, it could
things?
be a combination, customers, social proof. It could be testimonial videos. It could be a number of different things that really validate the fact that you have identified a company in this space or a company within the area has done really well with you. And here are some of the things that we've done to produce it. Now, some companies can get really granular and really, it depends on the product, right? Or
Hmm.
service.
Hmm.
You can
Hmm.
get really granular or you can be a little bit broad as well, but you want something in there that shows a validation that heck, I worked with these types of companies and I made a difference. And here's the difference we made. And again, you don't want to get too granular where you're getting confusing people, but
Right.
more importantly, that you've really validate the fact that you've done this before and you know how to make it work.
That is super, super, super important, by the way, folks. If you didn't write that one down, snap your pen and throw it out the window, because the reality is, write it down, because that's super important. Like, here's the thing. The rule is this: we can say how great we are, and maybe somebody will believe us. But when other people say how great we are, they always believe them, right? And so you'll see this in marketing all the time. Just watch commercials on television. What was that one? When DF Hutton speaks, people listen, right?
Listen.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, who spoke? Like, well, I don't even know who
Yeah.
DF Hutton is, but we've heard this so many times that you're like, oh man, there must be a lot of people listening to DF Hutton, right?
That's funny.
You see this in marketing, like McDonald's, billions and billions served,
Served. Yeah.
right? You don't even have to, like, it's like, well, if billions and billions of people have eaten here and didn't get food poisoning per se, I think I'll try McDonald's, right? Or whatever your beliefs are, the point being is that is beyond, it's not negotiable. If you don't give your sales team this stuff to work with, they are going to be like a fighter pilot going out in the field, and they're going to get strafed from every direction because they have no armor protecting them at that point.
Yeah.
And when your competitor walks in and says, oh, we've done these 14 things just in the last 2 months, and here's the results, here you go, I've got another 150 of these if you want to take a look, and you've got
Yeah.
nothing, you're exposed. It's
Yeah.
right. So you got
Yeah,
to
you do.
you got to
Yeah.
give the sales team things that support them. And man, I want to talk about this. You know what? Do you mind if we take a few more minutes? Because I want to talk about
No, it's great. No, it's great. Because here's the technique I want to chime in on though, right? If you have a sales team of 5 professionals,
Hmm,
okay, have them go get 2 testimonials. You got 10.
yeah.
If you have 2, have them go out and get 3. You got 6. Start somewhere. You don't have to put it on the owner. Like put it on your teams because once they develop it and validate it, believe me, they're going to share it amongst each other and use it when they need to. So it's definitely, leverage the teams to be able to do that because it's going to help them in the long run as well.
And man, when you have 10 testimonials, if you have something, even if they're on 2 sheets and they're just small and just
Whatever.
put it on marketing, right? And you got like 10 testimonials, you go, hey, listen, I figured I'd drop at least 10 testimonials on you. If you want more, we've got them. I'll send them
Yeah.
to you, right? I've never had anybody ask, ever say, oh, well, geez, you got 10 testimonials. I'd like to see the other 642 testimonials. No one's ever asked that question, right?
Yeah.
So the probability of people, digging deeper and deeper on the credibility is pretty limited. So this is where I want to step into for the next few minutes, which is
Yeah.
what you're talking about is positioning and alignment. And oh my goodness, I see so many companies not doing this. They're not thinking through this consciously, David, where it's like, how are we positioning and how do we align with the client's desire to fix the
Needs.
problem? Yeah, the needs, the intention to gain an opportunity or the need to get the goal. So can we expand upon that just for a moment? Like if we're coming in and we're not positioned in that capacity and we have a sales team, they're going to have a much more difficult time in closing the sale,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If folks, if there's nothing known about you, you've got to position as that's a good thing. I can tell you how many times that I look at people's like, where are they in the public square? And they're not there. And they're not talking about why they're not in the public square. They're not positioning and heading that off. And so let's talk about positioning for a second. How critical do you feel it? I mean, I feel it's super critical, but when you have, because if you're the owner, folks, and you're trying to transfer credibility to your sales team through the extension, they got to have something that's
Yeah.
positioning them.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that power statement for me,
Perfect.
that it's the thing that we really align with. And what's funny about this is when you create this power statement and you have identified the right targets for your business, right? That's extremely important. But you start speaking the language of your prospect. That's what this power statement does. It really identifies for you as the professional to walk in and say, listen, I specialize in working with XYZ companies, and here's some of the challenges that we actually tackle for you. We do this, 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 and this, and here's how we do it. And also, what really makes us different is this, this, and this makes us different. Now, that's just a broad framework that I'm giving you,
Right.
but you could fill the gaps there with your industry or your company. Now I've got their attention because I've already talked about their chance. Or let's do this one. Let's say you're hearing a common objection over and over again. Start leading with that as a challenge. Now you just eliminated the objection, okay? Because you've led with it as a challenge that you solve. And two, you've drawn yourself credibility. And three, you start speaking their language. And now what happens here, Doug, is that this power statement starts bleeding over to your website. It starts bleeding over to your marketing materials. It starts bleeding over to your email messaging. And when you really get this down, it kind of spawns as this mantra throughout the whole organization, and it's common. Now, Doug, you might say it a little bit differently than I say it, and I might say it a little bit differently than the marketing person says it, but the foundational elements are very consistent. So once you've drawn, again, we keep using this word, this clarity on what we really do, how we do it, and what makes us different, then you can start tailoring it towards different industries
Mm.
and really making sure that they understand that you understand what they're up against. And that's how you build credibility, and that's how you build value in a conversation that's pretty quick. And I'll say this too. Listen, there are times, I have the 5 steps of the presentation, but the real first meeting should be a discovery step as a whole.
Mm.
Okay, you might not get to the next steps in the first meeting. You're just trying to understand the positioning, as you called it, on what their needs are. Okay, there's some products where you can go through that and get through it. There's others where you have to go back to the lab, really think about the presentation and put something back in front of them and get back in front of them to build more value on their challenges.
All right, folks, if you didn't write anything down but that last part, and then you can send David at least $1,000 bill because that's going to pay 50 times over. I can already tell you that. Please write it down. Or go back and listen to this part again, because that is a crucial key. If you don't have this and you're trying to transfer extend through your sales team and you don't have what he just talked about, unified messaging, and all of these things, it's kind of like, salesperson says something, they go back to your website and it's very different.
Yeah, right.
There's
Great example.
there's a drop in trust right then and there. It's kind of like you go out on a really good, I like to use dating analogies, but you go out on a
Yeah.
really good date, and then all the girlfriends that know the date you went out go, nah, he's kind of a slime bag, right? I mean, it's just like all of a sudden it's like, you're like, well, the date was great. This is not what's going on. And so it's creating, like you said, uncertainty right in the beginning. You said, what, people most uncomfortable with, is creating uncertainty. And so, David, I thank you so much for being here today on the CEO Sales Strategies
Blast.
podcast. Thanks for playing AA plus 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 plus.
Thank you, man.
How
You
do
made it
people?
easy. You made it
Oh,
easy.
well, thank you. Thank you. I'll give you that, $100 I told you I would give you in the beginning for saying that. How do people know more about you, get a hold of you? Because I'm sure they're like, oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
absolutely. Check, I have a website called salesproformance.com, not performance, proformance.com. You can check me out on LinkedIn. Um, it's going to be under David Sliman. So just, hit me up or just email me. I mean, my email is dsliman at salesproformance.com and hit me up on an email. I'll speak to anybody and help you out. And just, I really serve to help people personally and professionally because I had a lot of mentors and a lot of people who affected me through my years in such a positive way. And, I can still continue to do that. Even in the trainings, like you said, I always learn something from somebody in a training or a sales training event or a speaking event or anything like that. So it's great.
Awesome. And by the way, folks, Sliman is Sliman.
MAN. Yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
it's not like Sly Stallone. It's
Yes.
Sliman.
IMAN.
So,
Yeah. Thank
so
you.
David, thanks so much for being here. So super grateful. I want to have you
Yeah.
back. If you would
Yeah.
come back in the
I'd love
future,
I'd love to.
appreciate
I'd
it.
love to, man. Yeah.
All
That'd be
right.
great.
Well,
Thanks
thanks
for having me,
again.
Doug. I appreciate you having me, man. It's been a blast.
All right. All right. All right. All right. So think about this for a second. Are you clear on the execution on the plan? Are you using KPI metrics? Metrics, man, I've heard you talk about that before, Doug. Yep. Remember, math-based predictable revenue growth. And it all comes down to your metrics that you're tracking. So you're doing that, as David said, and are you aligning the expectations on the front end and all the way through, consistently revisiting it over and over again, aligning those expectations with the team members who you call my sales team. And by the way, not just with your sales team, you want to align these expectations, just like we were talking about with the unified messaging and the alignment and positioning throughout your whole company and your whole team. You want to have that unified. uh, you know, Sun Tzu, the spirit of the same rank, right? That was, published long before any of us were ever even thought of. So, this is, and these concepts we talked about are absolute goal, goals I would say you would want to achieve and absolute truths. Right? We've both been doing this a long time and, learn from our mistakes so you don't have to, so to speak. All right, that's it. Again, if you're looking for predictable revenue, you want to reach out to me, reach out at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com and just shoot me an email saying, hey, predictable revenue, tell me what you're looking for. We'll have a conversation and see if it's right for you. All right, that's it. So go sell something today. Get your team to sell things today. If you don't have a team, consider building one. Okay. And get them to sell something today. Play win-win-win. They win, you win, someone else wins. Don't discount, build value. You discount, you've got to sell so much more to make up for that discount, even to break even. You're working harder, not smarter. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast saying to your success.